Call to order zoning appeals for Monday, June 12th, 2023. First item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from our May 22nd, 2023 meeting. Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Take any special requests or contingencies? None. Then we'll do findings of fact for DZA 2023-019 development standards variance from Andrew Kastner on behalf of Matchcraft Brewing.
Chairman, in consideration of statutory criteria, I move that we adopt the written findings of fact as presented, incorporating the evidence submitted into the record as their final decision and final action for variance petition number BZA 2023-019.
Ms. Peters, second by Mr. King. All those in favor raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Moving on, first item is old business. We have both BZA 2022-046 and 047 use variance and development standards variance from Racetrack. This is revisiting both of these that we heard back in January. All those which present to stand and be sworn in by our secretary.
Testimony is true to the best of your knowledge.
Is everything still in order?
Yes, everything's in order, and for the public hearing that they're opening back up to present you information, they've done all the notices for that as well.
Yes. We do have a very full agenda tonight and a lot to get through, so I am going to be fairly sticky on the time to present. We have 15 minutes to present anything new, 15 minutes for remonstration, and then 5 minutes each for rebuttal. So anything you can do to stay at that or under that would be greatly appreciated. And just tell us why you're back and what you have to present.
Absolutely.
And name and address for the record first. I'm sorry.
For the record, Russell Brown, attorney with the law firm of Clark Scott and Drawn, 320 North Meridian Street, Suite 1100 in Indianapolis. Start by incorporating by reference all of our comments provided at the January 23rd hearing. Consideration of time, I'll jump pretty quickly towards what's changed since we were here last. So we can actually go and show all the way to slide, I think it's the 5th page. It says entrance design. So as you'll remember, one of the concerns that we've heard through this is what does traffic look like? How does traffic impact coming onto Main Street? So we talked about last time, we did acquire access rights, or acquiring rights to the U-Haul facility to the east to create additional access points, additional access frontage for this location. Given that the original site only has 43 feet of frontage. We have proposed a right-in, right-out. There was concerns last time raised about was that sufficient to block anyone who was coming eastbound on Main Street from attempting to turn into the left. So what I've shown to you here is what we would call an enhanced design. This is an example diagram, so it's not engineered specifically for this site, but it's an example diagram of what we're utilized for what we call channelized access into and out of the site. This would, we believe, this would prevent anyone who is attempting to turn into the site left in from doing so. This is greater than a pork chop, the kind of the pork chop that is traditionally utilized. You can see here that it shows that there is, in fact, a 2-foot wide, 6 inch tall curve, which creates a barrier from through traffic to those turning in to the right. So there would actually be a physical curve that is more than just a pork chop, that creates an extended barrier so that someone cannot turn left in off of eastbound. We think that this, along with appropriate signage, will prevent the traveling public from attempting to turn in the left-bound this location. This design has been preliminarily shared with the city engineer receive at least a favorable initial review as being an appropriate way to block that type of proper turning access without a signal dislocation. The other thing that we think is important is introducing Mr. Prime on Zoom now. Last time we had demonstration from neighbors to the south. Mr. Prime is joining us via Zoom, but his clients, so we're handing over an operator for the road ranger to the south and taking a neutral position on this petition, taking the position of opposition previously. Mr. Prime and his clients have worked in good faith with us to agree to collaboratively work together to find a solution in the best interest of all parties in this matter, assuming the approval of these petitions tonight, including some ongoing collaboration about traffic concerns at this location. So we think that is, in our opinion, a very substantial change in position previously. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions that you have. Otherwise, mindful of the full agenda, given that 3 of you have heard this more than one occasion, happy to put short on the presentation that would incorporate our materials in the record, including our proposed findings that were previously read into the record. Having any questions that you might have.
I was going to ask about that since they previously read their statutory criteria in the record. Do I just ask that anything you want to add to those?
Yeah, it's the same testimony if it's, other than just testify to.
Okay. I guess I would ask then, Mr. Brown, for the approval. It's not injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. Is there anything you want to add, given what you testified here tonight?
There is not.
Okay, and then again, for the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, inclusive of variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. Anything you want to add additionally there?
The only thing that I would add is that we believe this traffic prevention measure would mitigate any impact on the left in or left out of the property.
And then the need for the variance arises from some condition peculiar to the property involved. Anything new there? And then the strict application of terms of zoning ordinance resulting in a ordinance will constitute unusual and unnecessary hardship to apply to the property for which the variance is sought. Any new details to that?
No.
And again, the approval does not interfere substantially with the comprehensive plan. Anything new to add there? No. Okay. With that, anyone else wishing to speak on behalf of the petition before I ask for remonstration? And then we'll get to the use variance here.
No, that is.
Sorry, this is just, sorry, thank you. We're discussing 46 specifically. Testimony may apply to both. But this is the use variance, allowing approval of use in order to operate a vehicular gasoline with convenience sales on a commercial zone industrial medium. All right, anyone wishing to speak in opposition? Name and address for the record.
My name is Ray Jackson at 373 Exeter Court, Greenwood. I am the HOA president and represent the Trace HOA Association of 60 residents. We're located at the Bella Vista Golf Course. Our residents are opposed to the changes that have been presented primarily from a traffic standpoint. We haven't seen the drawings that were presented tonight. We feel like the traffic is already very difficult in that area. Adding any other traffic coming in and out, we think will make things far more difficult for the residents of Greenwood.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, sir. Name and address for the record.
Mike Reed, 721 Fireside Drive, Greenwood.
Okay.
I'd just like to talk to the board. I'm former HOA president of Homecoming and founder of Johnson County Citizens for Responsible Development and ad hoc committee of Homecoming HOA. I was HOA president during the initial construction of the 100-acre industrial park that is now has warehouses 60 feet from our homes that this board approved just almost 3 years ago. That industrial complex has yet to be fully moved into, so there's going to be a large influx of traffic having to access the highway through Main Street. And Main Street has one lane going eastbound underneath I-65 and one lane going straight westbound under I-65. And I understand that expansion of Main Street is not scheduled for another 4 years. Is that correct? What I heard from City Council agreeing with it. Main Street between Graham Road and perhaps further east to Emerson is not scheduled for widening or improvement, major improvements for another 4 years. At least that's when it's going to start. And we know that Worsville started construction of expansion in 2012. It's 11 years later and it's still going on. So my point is that at the present time, we have traffic backing up in the mornings and the afternoons every workday at Main Street and I-65 all the way west to Emerson and then all the way east to at least Graham Road. And that's with current buildings before this 100-acre industrial complex gets moved into, and now you want to add a truck stop. If you drive down I-70 or anywhere in the United States, if you come to a off-ramp where in the middle of nowhere there's 3 or 4 truck stops and a few restaurants, you notice that there's 5-lane roads going from the highways to those businesses. We've got 1 lane Main Street going east, 1 lane Main Street going west. So my point is, again, there's not the adequate infrastructure for yet another business to be bringing in more semis and more traffic turning on and off of Main Street. You're basically engineering an increase of accidents and making the traffic back up even further. So we very much would oppose construction at that intersection until the city of Greenwood improves Main Street to handle the current traffic. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Gibson?
Good evening, I'll speak quickly.
Name and address for the record.
Yes, I'm Linda Gibson. I live at 201 Elm Street, Greenwood, and I'm here to speak to you regarding the proposals in front of you. As you may remember, Racetrack initially wanted to construct a truck stop at this location. That request was denied. There are several of us here this evening asking you to deny both the request to permit the use of a convenience store and fueling center at the location and the request to increase the number of fuel pumps. As you know, this property is on the north side of Main Street and immediately adjacent to the northbound ramp of I-65. And if you look at your pictures, you can see the proximity to 65. The planned westbound exit from this property is directly across Main Street from the single entry exit drive of the Road Ranger truck stop. And if you look at picture 2 and 3, you can see how much space those trucks need with and without the trailer on them, and also the location of that. The traffic is already horrendous with left turns coming out onto Main Street from the Road Ranger. In addition, there's semi-traffic coming from the warehouse and distribution centers. When viewing the picture, you see the wide space needed by the semi to make a left turn out of Road Ranger. You can also see the prior driveway on the north side of the street to realize the proximity of the right-only exit from Racetrack. With Homecoming to the east, neighborhoods such as Valley Vista, Country Air, The Trace, Vista Green, development from the west, Woodgate, Greenwood Station, Crooked Bend, and Central Homes, followed by the vast number of apartment dwellers at St. Andrews, Mission Hills, Bexley, and Emerald Lakes feeding into this area along Sheep. You'll see that there are more and more traffic that's already out there. People that are getting off the interstate and also people that are wanting to get on the interstate or people going cross country. According to Mark St. John, one of our city engineers, the current plan is designed to direct eastbound traffic to Congress Parkway West Drive, make a left turn between the two existing buildings, and make their way to the racetrack facility. Only a right in and right out will be allowed for westbound traffic on Main Street. Racetrack's request to secure a stoplight for that location was denied by the state of Indiana. Mr. St. John also provided me statistical information regarding traffic on Main Street. Traffic on Main Street is heaviest west of I-65 to Sheep Road. November of 2022, west of I-65 traffic study showed annual daily average of 27,413 vehicles, of which 2% or 548 were heavy vehicles, semi trucks, RVs, and trailers. October of 2022, east of I-65 traffic study showed annual daily average of 20,669 vehicles, of which 16% or 3,307 heavy vehicles, semi-trucks, RVs, and trailers. The city has a firm studying the Main Street corridor traffic as far as east as 5 points. The city hopes the study is completed yet this year, but the timing would be based on design and financing, and construction would still be starting after that. Racetrack statutory criteria states the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. But the influx of vehicles re-entering Main Street would back up existing traffic even more than it presently does. The use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner. According to the petitioner, with only a right-in, right-out access on Main Street will provide the needed service without negativity affecting the use or value of adjacent properties. What about the existing traffic? The need for the variance arises from some conditions peculiar to the property involved. What is that condition? By allowing a use variance for a convenience store and fueling center at this specific location, the city will be creating a problem for many existing motorists already using that stretch of Main Street on a daily basis. According to the traffic study, information would translate into 620,070 vehicles, of which 99,211 would be heavy vehicles or semis, RVs or trailers. We owe it to our community to make their travels easier, not to make the road more difficult and dangerous to travel. Another location further away from the intersection, such as Speedway and Quick Trip, offer safer flow of traffic. We are concerned it will create another 37 partying 465 situation. The petitioner's detailed statement of reason. The approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because all activities will be conducted on site and safe access, and connectivity has been provided within the submitted plan. The plan does not take into consideration the already unsafe traffic pattern that exists with present traffic. Number two, the use and value of the adjacent area to the property included in the variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because the petitioner states right in, right out exit on Main Street will allow for safe entry and exit to the site without conflicts with the user on the south side of Main. How can this not create a conflict? Not only the road range or existing traffic, but also the normal vehicular traffic already in existence today. Three, the need for the variance arises from some condition peculiar to the property. The similar use of the retail convenience with gasoline is permitted in this zoning classification. However, given the size of the subject property and the immediate adjacency to I-65, the scale of the convenience store permitted by right in this district is out of proportion. This property and the others adjacent to it are bound to see development soon as the nearby property is for sale. This property can host many types of commercial development, but this is just not the location to introduce more semi-traffic into the already overflowing traffic conditions. The developer desires for a retail convenience with fueling stations at this location. It's just not a good fit for this property. The strict application of the terms of the zoning ordinance will constitute an unusual and unnecessary hardship if applied to the property for which the variance is sought. And the petitioner says the proposed use is partially provided with the IN district as it permits retail with convenience and gasoline with a smaller footprint. The site of the convenience store based on the comprehensive plan would not require a variance. How much less traffic and probably few, if any, semis would be a much better fit for that location. Number 5, the approval does not interfere substantially with the comprehensive plan because the petitioner states a comprehensive plan recommends commercial use for this site and surrounding sites and designates this site as part of logistic employment area. It is imperative that the existing traffic situation is not overloaded, nor the increased number of vehicles, RVs, trailers, and semis, not to be ignored as they are all vying for a spot in this already crowded corridor. It seems that the size of an expanded convenience store needs to be proportionally relative to the size of the parcel and is a must. The developer then, instead of having a right in, right out for existing traffic, the total traffic flow should use the entrance that has already been established for eastbound traffic, needing to make a left-hand turn. Our residents expect us to make sound decisions with the best interest of everyone involved. The petitioner is requesting a variance, and this is on 047. The specific
We're not
use
there.
standards.
Yeah,
We're not there.
we're still on 46
Only on 46.
and we're at our 15 minutes for demonstration. So we'll give you time on 47. Should we get there?
Okay, may I make one more quick thing?
Sure.
I have an accident report from 2022. There were a total of 43 property damage accidents, 2 personal injury, and 4 hit and run. So far in this 6 months, there has been 23 property damage, 4 personal injury, and 1 hit and run. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Prime, I know you are out there. Were you wishing to speak or have anything to respond to the petitioner's statement on your behalf?
I'm certainly willing to confirm what Mr. Brown said earlier, that on behalf of IndyCorp, my client, and our tenant Road Ranger, we have come to an agreement where we are now neutral on this, on the petition.
Thank you. Mr. Brown, you have 5 minutes if you would like to respond.
Thank you. A couple of things that are obvious. It's not a truck stop. You all heard a petition on that approximately a year ago. Significant modifications to the site plan and plan of operation were made based on those things. So this is not a truck stop. There's no overnight parking of trucks. There is no, this will not be a truck stop. There's a significant amount of assumptions made on behalf of the demonstrators. We believe this is an attempt, proposed development to serve industrial users who are already in the vicinity. So we believe that a significant amount of the traffic, significant amount of those users are already in this vicinity. This is not one of the racetrack guys when we do presentations talks about, we already have a lot of thought business on the highway. We already have fleet users who are they know they're going to Love's or they're going to Pilot. So they're not getting off of the interstate here specifically for a racetrack use. That business is already going to those fleet areas, fleet assigned areas. We are talking about regional and local industrial providers for those people who are already in the location. This zoning classification already has the heaviest commercial use at this location. We think that's important to understand without any consideration of traffic, without any modifications on traffic. We've gone to great design, great efforts to try to minimize any potential interference without a signal with those trucks that are entering and exiting out of the road area. They already have that full access point on their property. So we attempted to adapt our proposal, understanding that already exists and we could do nothing about that. A lot of the discussion in the Ramon Stairs case talked about traffic, impacting traffic. Statutory criteria talk about use value of the adjacent properties, talk about injurious to public health, safety, and welfare, and morals. We believe we're actually improving traffic at this location because you have a full access cut out of the U-Haul facility currently. So you have the ability to turn left out of there, head eastbound. We would no longer have that in that traffic moving those people who would be maneuvering across Main Street to head eastbound. So we think we're in fact making traffic configuration, traffic movements in this location better proposal that's before you with a physical barrier, so no one's going to try to whip in around that location. So we think this does address those concerns that have been brought up as we've been talking about this process, this project for nearly 3 years. We do believe this stands ready for your review and approval this evening. I believe statutory criteria have been met. I would ask for your approval of this process.
Appreciate it. Anyone else for remonstration has 5 minutes? So I would ask that anyone that wishes to speak is very brief and doesn't repeat. Ms. Gibson.
Commissioners, we realize that this is not about traffic, but it is about safety. And safety is our main goal here. And we just feel like that we have to protect the citizens and not be increasing the traffic that's all in that same footprint. We understand that it's not a truck stop. We know that that was turned down, but they wanted to build a convenience store larger than what is allowed. And so that's why they're asking for a use variance. And the size of the convenience store, I believe, is very close to what would be at a truck stop.
Thank you. Sir. Mr. Free.
Mr. Reed, yeah. I just wanted to ask some questions of the petitioner, if I could, just so we all understand the details that could impact the decision. Is that okay to ask?
I think as a matter of course, if you can issue your statements, we can ask those as a board of the petitioner.
So first question is there going to be 7 diesel pumps that are designed that semis can access them? Would be my first question. The second question would be, is there going to be signage either on site or billboards in the vicinity of I-65 that might direct additional traffic to this business, the racetrack? That's all.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Anyone on the phone? Seeing none, I would ask the staff again. You had a favorable recommendation on the original document. Is that still your stance? Anything to add to that?
We really don't have any new information. I think most of the new information was discussed tonight. I guess just a reminder, this is a use variance. They've also proposed some dimensional variances. So just to, for you guys, consider this to be the use variance as proposed with the standards of the what they're applying for. The dimensional variance is a separate variance that you'll get to. They're obviously related in some way, but it is a separate variance. Right now, they are allowed to have a fueling station, but the convenience store would need to be much smaller. So the use variance is really for a larger fueling station, convenience store, and then of course they have the other variances that they're proposing as well. But No comments really.
I'll close the public hearing. Open up the board. Mr. Milborn, any questions? Mr. King? No. Ms. Peters? All right, I will ask the questions that were presented. So can you speak to the number of diesel pumps and then for semis?
So, as Gabe just mentioned, unless we have a variance, development conventional standards variance granted, if that was granted, yes, we would have 7 diesel pumps that would be located on the north side of the site. As it relates to signage, there's a condition in the staff report indicating that their support is conditioned on us only being able to utilize signage that's permitted by ordinance, absent the variances. We're not asking for any variances related to signage.
And then, as far as billboards and that, I don't think there's even this board can govern as far as what you advertise or don't advertise or what those plans are. So I won't get into that. And then just clarify there's no showers, there's nothing like that for this semi-drivers. I have no other question. I have a question just for the staff. So in addition to a smaller gas station convenience store that could go in here without any of this, there are other medium commercial businesses that could go in with similar traffic patterns.
So the zoning for this site is IM, to correct, it is IM, industrial medium. Some of the commercial ones may overlap, but it's geared more towards industrial uses than commercial uses. And they would be permitted as principal uses at this site. The gas station with the size convenience store that they are looking for is only allowed in the commercial zones, not in the industrial zones.
An industrial zone could introduce semi-traffic additionally.
Yes, there are uses under our use table, and I can go over some of those, but they are industrial uses, and sometimes that does utilize semi trucks.
I mean, from my perspective, I'm not immune to what we're doing from a traffic perspective, but something can go in here, it's going to generate traffic. I appreciate the efforts to mitigate that traffic. So, those are things for us to consider. So, I'll take a motion to admit all the evidence into the record.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any demonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. King. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. I'll take a motion on BZA 2022-046, which is the use variance in order to operate a gas station at the undeveloped parcel at the northeast intersection, I-65 Main Street, property currently zoned industrial medium. However, the requested use is only permitted in a commercial medium and commercial large zone.
Just for the request, our ordinance does delineate between retail convenience with gasoline. That's what's allowed. What they're requesting is the use variance to apply the vehicular gasoline with convenience sales. So if you just say gas station, it may be difficult to understand what they're requesting. So
Thank you for the clarification. There is one recommended condition, which is signage shall comply with section 10-3-8 of gasoline sales signage requirements pending any variances are granted by this board.
Chairman, I recommend that we approve this request with the condition indicated that the signage complying with the section 10-3-08.
Motion by Mr. Peters to approve with the one condition. Do I have a second? Do I have a second so that we can vote on it, or what happens if I don't have?
We can do that, yeah. I forgot we did that, sorry.
You would want someone to, you can second it to vote on it, or they'll get.
Second, that's okay.
A motion by Mr. Peters to approve with one condition, second by Mr. King. All those in favor of the approval, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion pushes to 2 again. So
I guess moving forward, I will have the member who did not attend review the public hearing. And we can schedule them for the next meeting, if it works with their schedule. And at that meeting, you may have a time where you can ask questions, but it would be outside of the public hearing. The public hearing is closed. He could then vote on the petition.
If I recall, he was at one of the other meetings, so he's probably,
he was on the original.
Yeah,
yes, he was at the original meeting.
Yes,
Is it only originally just?
it was a new motion, so he'll need to,
Hear the additional evidence.
we'll have to hear the additional evidence, correct?
So should we go to 47?
So in for the sake of time and the fact that without 46, you cannot have 47, I am going to ask that we continue 47. That would be a reasonable request by staff.
So it is, you have the ability to continue items. We can request that you do, but that is within your power to continue an item. Then the next meeting date that will be before BCA is the 26th, June 26th. I would just ask that we check if that works with the petitioner and possibly some of those who have interest to continue both of them to that meeting.
Is everyone going to be here at the 26th?
I will not be.
We'll be short another member on the 26th.
I may be able to zoom in.
Okay.
If you could zoom in, that would be appreciated. Just so we can at least have some closure on this one. They've been very accommodating.
Very accommodating, very patient.
Switching around the schedule. I know you weren't here for most of it, but if you could zoom in, that would be a possibility.
Yes, I have a meeting at 7 that evening, so I can probably. Yeah.
Yeah. It will be right away in the beginning, and I'll make sure that Mr. Mole is.
How much is on the agenda for that evening?
It will be another full agenda. This has already had the public hearing portion, and it will be.
My concern is the 47, whether we hear the public hearing on that tonight or not.
I would recommend that we wait to find out if 46 happens.
Okay. How's the 26th as far as your availability and schedule?
I would likely have to appear remotely, but believe they're notifying that we're going to request continuance in advance, or we'll have someone here in person, myself remotely, or we'll have some, when we're ready to move forward, we'll be ready to move forward, or we'll notify you in advance of an asterisk.
I appreciate you, Brown. I would take a motion to continue 46 and 47, BCA 2022-46 and 47 to the June 26th meeting. Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. So would you be sure to sign and document your ballots? That will get submitted.
For the
For the first,
Not
for the
second.
first one, just for the first one. We'll give 20 seconds here or so for those that are leaving to vacate. Appreciate everybody's time. Do we have any old business from the floor?
No.
Seeing none, let's move to new business. BZA 2023-020 Development Standards Variance for 905 North Emerson. Petitioner Mike Gordon on behalf of the Allen Commercial Group requesting relief from 4 sections of the Unified Development Ordinance. Those wishing to present, please stand and be sworn in by the secretary.
If I may, the answers are the same for each of the 4. The responses, if you would like to ask them if they're comfortable using those for each of them, maybe reading them once for the sake of time.
Perfect.
You swear to uphold this perjury, testimony against you, the best of your knowledge. Thank you.
Mike Gordon for Allen Commercial Group for 997 East County Line, Greenwood. I'll be brief. We bought as a company, bought a property here we call the Frick property back in 2007 or so. And it's a development act with commercial office, medical office buildings. Built the very first building in 2019, 2020. At 853 North Emerson. That building was completed in late 2020. It's 100% leased. It was built in under standards that I believe were called the IC flag overlay. I may have that incorrect, but I believe that was the case. Sometime after the building was completed, that ordinance was replaced by current ordinance. So our building no longer met some of the criteria. And we didn't really know that until we submitted this plan for approval through the tech review process. So there were several little instances where it doesn't meet the letter of the ordinance. We believe it meets the spirit of the ordinance in that you want an architecturally pleasing building with quality materials. We believe we've done that, but again, there are some technicalities that don't quite meet the standard. And I can address each of those if you have questions on them.
So yes, we may have questions.
Sure.
I think let's go through the criteria. Let me go through the 4 variances that you're asking for real quick, and then we'll go through the criteria that applies to all of them. Is that correct? Your responses. So number 1, you're asking to reduce the amount of masonry on the front facade from 50% to 18%. Number 2, you're asking to allow the columns to be constructed of materials other than stone, brick, or stucco. And number 3, you're wanting to allow the front facade to not articulate 2 feet for every 50 feet of facade width. And number 4, you want to allow the facades visible from a public or private street through a common area, park, or open space to not be treated as a front facade. Those 4. Okay. Let's talk about the criteria. So number 1, for all of those, the approval will not be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because if you want to give your response, you can read what you have written there, or you can.
Yeah, I don't believe that any of our variations are a public health situation at all.
Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property including the variance will not be affected in substantially adverse manner because.
Okay, sure. This building 2 is identical to building 1. We don't believe that building 1 has negatively affected any adjacent properties.
And then number 3, the strict application of the terms of zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties in the use of the property because.
This was a tough one. The hardship that we believe that it kind of creates is consistency. You know, we've developed several office parks over the years, and we like to make them consistent. It's easier for people to identify. It's easier for customers to identify when the buildings all look the same. So we really want the buildings to look the same architecturally.
Okay, and number 4, the structure is not regulated under Indiana code. Oh, wait, sorry, yeah, the structure has been determined by the FAA to have no hazard to air navigation for this building, so you've obtained that. Okay. Anything specific you want to talk about on those 4 before we ask staff and then have the board ask questions about it?
Well, on the masonry requirement, we use a product that's an architectural fiber cement panel, wall panel. It's faster to install. It carries a longer warranty than masonry. It's an easier to maintain product. So it's not like we're trying to cut corners on the way the building looks. We still think it looks very nice. Masonry has a lot of inherent problems as a developer with signage, people putting holes in brick to mount signs, creates all kinds of problems. We just try to make that a little more convenient and a little easier to maintain.
Okay.
As far as the covering of the columns, which was one of the points, we really don't have any exposed columns except for a front entry feature, and it's exposed steel. So I think that's why it doesn't meet the ordinance. If you look at the pictures of the existing building, it's kind of an exposed industrial look type entrance feature.
Okay,
So it doesn't have any coverings other than paint.
I see.
And then the other one was with articulation of the heights of the building. And again, I believe the spirit of that ordinance is just to give some interest architecturally. And so we have, for example, on the front elevation, we have 236 feet of frontage. So we need 4.7 articulations of 2 feet. And I think we have 4. So, and then I don't know if that counts ins and outs horizontally.
It's the ins and outs horizontal.
Not up and down.
Not up and down.
Okay.
It can be difficult to read and understand.
Yeah.
Horizontal, not vertical.
Gotcha. And then I think the last one was treating all elevations as a front. We really believe the front elevation is the one that faces Emerson. The road that goes back to the Goodwill stores, we really don't consider that, I guess, a public street per se, so we don't really think that should be treated as a front. Although all of our elevations of our buildings are pretty identical in terms of the material anyway.
Okay. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Anyone else wishing to speak? All right, seeing none, staff, I know you had some comments in the report. You would like to talk about those?
Thank you. Yes, so like we said, we don't necessarily disagree with the petitioner's statements of reasons. Just matter of fact, our ordinance has changed and we have new standards now at this time. So we don't think it will negatively affect public health or property values for this building to match the property next door. It was just that it really meant like a hardship. There was one thing I know it was mentioned that there was fiber cement panels being used. I guess I would ask that if you do plan to approve it, that it conforms to the site plan and that building elevations with the fiber cement panels. I know that we allow for fiber cement, but siding, but not necessarily panels, so it would need to substantially conform. You'd need to be approving it to conform with what he's presented for the siding. It really is a siding variance in a way, but this, all 4 responses were the same. Our staff comment is kind of the same for all of them, that our standards have just changed.
Yes, sir.
What's the difference between the siding and the panels?
I think if you look at, I've looked at this a little bit because we do have this differentiation in there. I believe for fiber cement siding, it simply looks more like what you would simply see, like that hardy plank siding that goes on like a lot of new
Right.
residential homes. The panels are just more of a smooth face, I believe. that's what's been adopted by the code. I can't speak for why that was the decision that was made, but that's in our general design standards. It differentiates that siding of fiber cement is allowed, but not the panel.
And in the elevations, it does say board, it doesn't necessarily say panel, it says fiber cement board, just to clarify.
Would that include hardy plank?
I think what they are proposing here would fall under the the fiber cement board, not necessarily the approved hardy plank that we allow for. I think that's why we asked for, if we do approve it, that make that clarification to allow for that.
Let's talk to you about it.
Okay.
Okay, yeah, I'll close the public hearing. Mr. Merwarn, any additional questions?
No.
Mr. King? Ms. Peters? I think the only thing I have is, on the issue of practical difficulties, the staff's comments that it does not have to be an identical building because it is separated. I understand their position there, but the uniformity to the petitioner's statement in the two buildings and being similarly owned in a gateway, yeah, I mean, I do think there's, I think there is some practical difficulties not being able to match up to what's there, so. Okay, I'll take a motion to accept all the evidence in the record.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the unified development ordinance and comprehensive plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and any remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. King. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Take a motion on request number 1 to allow the amount of masonry on the front facade to be reduced from 50% to 18%.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the request with the condition the final plans shall substantially conform to the site plan depicted in Exhibit C and building elevations depicted in Exhibit E.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Request number 2 to allow columns to be constructed materials other than stone, brick, or stucco.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve this request with the previously stated condition.
Motion by Mr. King to approve with the condition, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Request number 3 to allow front facade to not articulate 2 feet for every 50 feet of front facade.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve this request with the previously stated condition.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. And then on your ballot, please change the last request to request number 4, not request number 3.
You have a duplicate request there too.
Oh, sorry, cross out the duplicate request. Thank you. And use number 4, which to allow a facade visible from a public or private street to a common area park or open space to not be treated as a front facade.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the request with the stated condition.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Milborn. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. I will take a motion to direct the Corporations Council to draft the findings of fact.
Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporation Council's office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance request presented in variance petition number BZA 2023-020. Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as a final decision, final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
Motion by Mr. Peterson, by Mr. King. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. You are good to proceed. We will take final action on issue 26, but before the staff can move forward. Next up, BZA 2023. Yeah, BZA 2023-021, as well as DCA 2023-02022, 2021 is for 1641 West County Line Road. 2022 is for 1655 West County Line Road, both petitioner Raymond Bazile. On behalf of VR Empire, requesting relief from section 10-3-16 fueling stations to allow a fueling station within 400 feet of residential properties. All those wishing to present, please stand and be sworn in by our secretary.
Swear on Mr. Perjury, testimony is true, the best of your knowledge.
Are all the notices and everything in order?
Yes, they are for both petitions, both separate variances.
Mr. Foster?
Yeah, I moved it, certified copy of the
I believe I may skip this step on DCA 2023-20.
Yes.
Are we?
All are in order for all of the petitions tonight. Okay. Thank you.
Name and address for the record, please.
Good evening, my name is Ray Vasili. I'm attorney for VR Empire, petitioner on both petitions that are before you. They are adjacent properties, so with your permission, I'll address them as one.
Would love for you to do that. In the absence of time.
Yes, so this project is going to be a gas station convenience store that encompasses both of these two parcels. This property, both properties are already zoned correctly for this, so we're not proposing to change that. It's simply creating a gas station that's going to be within 400 feet of existing residential. The owner of this, the developer of this property has gas stations across Minneapolis, some of the other surrounding counties. They're nice properties, they don't get cited for problems with trash, waste, things like that. We submitted architectural plans that you would have seen, hopefully. It is going to be an all brick, nice facade. It's not something where you have a lot of siding, something that's going to work out of place in the area, or worse in the area. Frankly, it's going to be really nice. Have a chance to take a look at that. We believe there's going to be minimal residential impact. This is something that is facing, can we pull up the aerial? I got it on a flash drive. That's not.
Yes, we can use the flash drive.
Can I?
It's up by you.
We do have the pictures in our packet that is saying.
Okay. I didn't know what you had. We've got all the pictures there over there.
Well, I think he's talking about this overhead area.
Oh,
Oh, there we go. Thank you. Okay, so where it says Tails and Trails, that's the building that is next to it. So what we're talking about is where you look at the Family Fun Sports, the big building there, it's the two properties immediately to the east of there. That's what we're talking about, that's the area. So again, what this shows is this is not a request that's a spot zoning or something where you're trying to drop a gas station in the middle of a residential area. This is an area that's highly developed. It's a very busy intersection. A lot of commercial retail traffic through that area. There's a Salvation Army, commercial office building, Family Fun Sports, strip center, Meridian Marketplace, public storage facility to the north. We believe there's going to be very minimal residential impact for a couple of reasons. One, again, it's already a developed area. Two, the gas station is obviously going to face to the north. So the traffic that's going to come in and out is going to come in and out the county line. The residences are the ones that you see to the southeast on Apple Valley Road. That's the neighborhood that will be within the 400 feet, but that will largely be behind the property and will not be impacted by it. There's also, as you can see there, there is a tree line that's there, that's existing, that's not going to be disturbed. It will be in between the gas station and those residences there. So again, we believe that that's going to be a good buffer for that. So turning to the factors that you have to consider, We do not believe that this is going to be injurious to public health, safety, and morals. The site is not going to sell liquor, firearms, adult entertainment, things like that. This is an area that, again, already has traffic, so it's not going to add to noise pollution, things like that. In terms of any concern of pollution from the actual gas station use, I've done quite a few of these for gas stations around town. I can tell you that there are very few businesses that are more regulated in Indiana than gas stations in terms of environmental concerns and things like that. They will not open, and they will not get permits to operate from IDEM, anybody else that has a say in this, unless they can establish that it is safe, that it's not going to contaminate things, that it's not going to cause a problem for the homeless area. So for that reason, we believe it's not injurious to public health, safety, things like that. It's also not going to increase traffic in the area. This is one of those businesses that when we do traffic studies, they don't create unique traffic. People stop in there when they're on the way by. People don't leave from miles away to come to a gas station. They go there when they've already been at the family fun sports and they need gas on the way home. So it's not going to add traffic to the area. It's simply going to create a new business. Benefits for the city. In terms of the use and value of the adjacent areas, again, this is in an area that's already developed for retail and commercial. This is simply taking a spot that's in between two commercial properties, which is the Tails and Trails Resort, which is also an office building there, and the Family Fun Sports. So it's an area that's already developed all the way around it. So again, it's not changing the dynamics of that area. It's not changing anything that's going to decrease property value. It's not something that's going to have liquor sales or any of the things that people tend to get truly concerned about in that regard. Again, it faces the lake, and the houses, and they're just going to see the back of a nice brick building that's going to be operated to the north. We do believe that strict application of the zoning ordinance would create practical difficulties and hardship. Again, this is already zoned correctly for this. It is a properties that are not being used at their highest and best value. But for this issue of the 400 feet, there would be no other impediments other than, again, those requirements from IDEM and everybody else that has a say in making sure that this is safe and clean, it doesn't create pollution. So we believe it would create a hardship to apply that, particularly where the business faces to the north of the way, where there is fence line and a tree line that's existing that is not going to be touched. As part of this in between the properties, and there's already existing. So for that reason, we're requesting approval of the dimensional variance for both of the properties, 1641 and 1655. If you have any questions, I'm happy.
The only thing I'll add is the structure is not regulated under Indiana Code 8-21-10-3 for hazard air navigation. For the record. For the record. I will get to questions of the board when we close the public hearing. Anything else you wish to add before I ask if there's anyone else wishing to speak?
No.
Okay. Anyone wishing to speak remonstrate? Name and address for the record.
My name is A.L. Smith. My address is 548 Lockerbie Circle, North Drive, Indianapolis, 46202. I am the owner of the building immediately east of the location that they're talking about. I have any number of reasons to oppose what they want to do. First is we have a gas station 1 mile south. We have one mile west. We have 2 1 mile north, and we have 2 1 mile east. I can't imagine why we need another right there. Secondly, it will most decidedly affect my property value. I can tell you that for sure. as I'm negotiating my building right now, and it's an issue. Full disclosure, I also own a building on Meridian Street. On the other side of my parking lot is opioid management that I'm not real happy about. That was zoned way before. You guys didn't even have a chance to even talk about it. So I'm a little salty about that still. So I'm pressing a little bit on this. And most importantly, this 400 feet for homes, it was designed for a reason, obviously, right? So these two properties, my property, house right there. And despite the counselor's plea, I'm pretty sure he doesn't want a gas station 400 feet from his house. So I simply, as a business person myself, I try not to say no to things, but I'm trying to find valid reasons to say yes, and I'm not finding them. So for all these reasons, I oppose this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Name and address for the record.
Good evening, Randy Gooden, 1157 Central Park Boulevard South, Greenwood, Indiana, 46143. I stand as someone who's been a victim of a development like this, and I ask that you deny this. There's a reason that this, what is it, 600 feet is in here. We had this changed several years ago when Circle K built one within 40 feet of me. I haven't heard the district offer anything where he's going to be able to control the noise, to be able to control the foot traffic from the neighborhood around Apple Valley Road. And I know that people are going to say, well, there's not going to be any foot traffic. I'm sure that there's other additions that connect to this, and yes, there will be foot traffic that's cutting through these people's yards that put them at a liability for anyone cutting through. I haven't heard really anything to say that they're going to try and put up much of a barrier between these properties. And when they say that they're not increasing traffic, then why are they asking for the increase in pumping stations? That's in the second part of what they're asking for the variance. He's going against what he's telling you. If it's not going to increase traffic, reduce them. If you're going to let this stand, as someone who lives next to one of these, he is right. They are regulated by the state for pollution, for penetration of the ground. They don't tell you about what's floating through the air to the neighbors and contaminating their filtration systems in their homes, how many more times they're going to have to change these filtration systems, how much more of a hazard it is to their health, especially anyone who's an aging population. You've already heard there's another gas station within a mile. There could surely be something better developed for this area. We don't have to change this and accept something else that could have a serious negative impact on his neighbors without concern for them, but rather just for the business owners themselves. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Lucy, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. First off, again, these comments, and I take them to be sincere. They're not new. I mean, it's when you have a gas station, people have concerns about certain things. What was brought up here, brought up in the staff report. I mean, those are sort of similar things. In terms of property values, again, I've done a lot of these, and people have this concern that it's going to bring down property values. But when you have fairly strict building requirements in terms of what it has to look like and how it's got to operate, those sorts of things, which Greenwood does, we've already had some preliminary discussions with staff about the actual construction of it, things like that, just to get a better understanding of what they are. So as you can see from our architectural layouts, these are nice looking buildings. These are not buildings that you walk up and drive down sort of older areas of town and they're buildings that were, gas stations built 40 years ago. That's not what they look like anymore. So, we don't think it's going to decrease property values, particularly in an area, again, where it's already got all sorts of commercial and retail in that area. You can see, just from this, I mean, just all of the commercial retail that's immediately in that area. So to suggest that this one application of variance request for these parcels is going to impact property values, I disagree with that. To the extent that you are inclined to consider that as it relates to the first demonstrator, now I point out that's a commercial building, and that's not what we're here for this evening. We're talking about the residential properties that are in the southeast. That's the issue. And if it was a concern, we've got signs that have been posted out there for weeks. We have mailed out all the required notices, we put it in the newspaper. And unlike other times where we've had some specific concerns, as far as I know, nobody's written a letter in from that neighborhood, nobody that lives in that neighborhood that has come to speak against this or has even called in to say we can't be here tonight. I could be wrong, on that, tell me, I'm sure, but as far as I know, that hasn't occurred. So I think to suggest that there's this grave concern from those within that neighborhood that would be the ones that are impacted by this, if there was going to be an impact, I don't think it's occurring. In terms of the number of gas stations in the area, I don't think that's a valid criteria. It certainly doesn't fall under any of the criteria that's before you for consideration in terms of whether it's injurious to property values or things like that. If you drive up and down Meridian Street or 135 there, there's all sorts of fast food. I mean, how many burger places do you need? How many chicken places do you need? Business owners are free to make their own determination as to whether or not they can make money there, whether it's profitable or not. And the fact that there's another gas station a mile or two away, to me, that speaks to the fact of what I said about traffic. There's not going to be unique traffic stops coming here. People go where they are living, where they're going to stop to do other business. If that wasn't the case, you wouldn't need as many gas stations, and they wouldn't exist because there wouldn't be a reason for that, because everybody would go to the same ones. They don't. They go where it's proximate, where it's convenient, and that's what this is on. In terms of foot traffic, and that there is, and it's an existing buffer there in between already. I know my client is willing to work with planning staff if there was some requirement to build some fence along there to assist in that. They want to be good neighbors, not trying to just come in here and disrupt everything. They're taking two properties that are being underutilized and want to develop a nice development that's going to cost them a lot of money, but look nice when it's done. So our position is that, notwithstanding the demonstrators' concerns, which I don't discount, but I don't think those are applicable and sufficient to address the standards that are before you today, what you're considering today, or vast favor approval.
Thank you. 5 minutes for rebuttal from the demonstrators.
Thank you again. Again, I asked, if there's not going to be an increase in traffic, why are we increasing the number of pumps to almost double? We have a double standard here. We're talking on both sides.
There's no request for
It's
additional
and
pumps.
they.
Sir, there is no request for additional pumps that I'm aware of. This is
No.
simply for the 400 feet.
My apologies then, so looking at the wrong one. But let's back up to what I have about this one, and it is, I've yet to hear anything where we're gonna be addressing two things that are a major concern when you live next to these things. There's actually three things. One is light control, and I understand you have 400 feet between you and the neighbors. But still, you get a flooding of light control, even with downcast lights. And anyone says you don't, drive by Circle K out on Louisville and see anytime. You also haven't talked about how you're going to control the noise. You've offered to put up a fence. A fence is oftentimes torn down. They are not adequate at stopping noise. And people say, well, what noise is going to be coming from a gas station? Let someone with a loud stereo and their low bass drive by your house at any time, and that's exactly what you're hearing from a gas station at 2 in the morning. It will travel 400 feet. You will hear this. You are a disturbance to these people that live in these homes. And you talk about why they are not here. many of these people that live there have never had the opportunity to live next door to a gas station. They don't know what's coming to them. Some of us have lived to it. And it's my sole purpose before you and before the common council all these years has been to try and stand for my neighbors and try and keep this from happening to them, just like it did to me. Again, that is why we increased that ordinance where we had the distance increased to 600 feet that they built within of a residence instead of what it was 40 feet. There are reasons we've done things like this. And again, I've not heard a district give anything as a solution other than a fence to control the trash, to control the noise. And no matter what he's saying, he will increase the traffic down through here because it may not increase what's along county line, but you're going to increase what's in front of those residents. And you are going to make it a bit of a struggle for people trying to get in and out of those residences. Thank you.
We have 2 minutes.
I'll be quick. So it sounded like it was being discounted. Again, I'm in the middle of a negotiation as we speak, quite literally as we speak. This potential new owner doesn't want it. He's made it clear. He's not going to pay what I want for that. That's just a fact. Doesn't have to have any bearing, but you can't say it doesn't have any value or any input with value. More importantly, again, house is so very close. And you were talking about 200 yards, maybe 300. I'm a golfer, I know this. From the intersection of 135 and County Line Road. That is a train wreck at night. It just is. It's going to be a wreck on a wreck if we have that there. I'm all for developing this area. I agree. What is there now is a mess, right? I agree with that. But I don't think a gas station is going to be the answer. So anyway, thank you again.
Thank you. Close public hearing. I'll ask staff to give their comments.
Just a quick point of clarification. They may not be located within 400 feet of residential properties. 600 feet is for dealing with other fueling stations and intersections. So there's a couple different numbers out there. Well, I hope you had time to read the staff report. I will kind of recap that for the sake of time, but really staff did not agree with any of the petitioner's statement of reasons except for the hazard to air traffic control. Regarding the first question, it examines the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community. We believe it can be argued that a fueling station is far too intensive a use to be abutting a residential property. You have fumes, you have odors that are smells that are associated with gas stations that can permeate through the surrounding areas. This can cause discomfort. I've been close to gas stations the way I live right now and close to a gas station, but I'm kind of on the opposite end of the building. And when I'm out front, you can smell the gas station if the wind's blowing correctly. They're known to permit not just smelly odors, but harmful pollutants. They're finding out more and more about these carcinogens that are emitted into the air that are known to travel, 350 feet plus, and they are especially harmful to at-risk groups. So whether elderly, your children, certain other at-risk groups, these can be especially harmful to. Last thing, kind of going with the safety and welfare, we're going to have additional terms coming out of this property, which we do think is going to be potentially dangerous with the vehicle stacking at the traffic light near 135. So it's less than 500 feet away. So there is some concerns there as well. With gas stations, it's oftentimes people that are on their way to something else, so it's maybe not adding a destination, but it is going to create turning movements coming in and out of that gas station. The second criteria is the effect on neighboring properties. It's very easy to imagine that a gas station against your residential property line will negatively affect your property value. There's a perception of gas stations, and there are reasons that we have this 400-foot buffer from residential homes. I do think property values is one of those reasons. This can create, the perception of decreased livability or even decreased livability having one so close to your home. The third one, criteria, we do find the most problematic. This is the concept of having a practical difficulty. Really what they're indicating is that the commercial medium zone has a practical difficulty where we're not allowing them to build a gas station. That's simply not true. There are plenty of other uses that are allowed, permitted principal uses that do not have these 400-foot buffering criteria to residential. None of our other commercial medium uses are prohibited from being that close to residential. This is specifically for gas station. And I'll just end with saying that it's self-imposed. This is not something that the city has created, some unique situation. This is self-imposed. They just want to be at a location that is closer to residential houses than we allow. That's nothing to do with a practical difficulty. The residents there, a lot of them have been there since the 1970s. I just don't think this is appropriate. So that's all.
Thank you. Mr. Nelson. Mr. Milroy, questions?
You saying is that 400 or 600 feet?
So our requirement is that they need to be 400 feet away from residential property. Both of the parcels, they're separate parcels right now, which is why I have two different variances. Both of them are within 400 feet. The one parcel is abutting. It is 0 feet away from the residential property, not even the previous, I think it was 40 feet. It is 0 feet.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. King,
No questions.
Ms. Peters?
I guess my one concern is, I think it's misleading showing the few cars every time I've gone down county line, turn left on 135, I have to wait for at least 3 lights to get turned. And so it's only showing a small number, and I can't imagine coming out of a gas station to even try to turn left. You'd have to be right in, right out, as far as I can see.
You can't turn left coming out of that
No, there's no way.
KFC area
Yeah,
there. Right
you
now.
can't do it.
Just a clarification, County Line Road is controlled by,
Yeah, I
not
understand.
controlled by, so
Yeah.
they would have to work with,
I understand, but what I'm saying is, since I don't see that changing, I'm not seeing this
And
as
it
a
may be-
viable business to keep it from being a right in, right out
And
only business.
it may be planning controlled by Indianapolis, but every accident is gonna be pointed at
Oh, of
GPD,
course.
not IMPD.
But that's my comment, my concern.
I guess I would second that. You know, this appears to be a very nice addition to that area. However, for us, it does come down to all the criteria. There are times we can be on the border of some of the criteria, but I think every one of these criteria has had evidence presented tonight that make it very difficult to say clearly it's one way or the other. We've heard evidence of values of property nearby, whether it's the properties responsible for the actual variance or not. It is the adjacent properties and the value. While the residents did not testify themselves, we've heard from staff, we've heard from others of the impact it can have on the residents from the smells and fumes and the lights. And I'm assuming it's just a 24/7 planned operation, or so you're gonna have lights all through the night where the current businesses that are immediately by the residents are not of that nature, right? There is a lot to think about on this one. It's a pretty tough one. So with that, I'll take a motion to admit all the evidence in the record.
Chairman, I move that we admit all the evidence presented in regard to this matter, including the notices, receipts, maps, photographs, written documents, petitioner's application and attachments, petitioner's detailed statement of reasons, the staff report prepared by the planning department, certified copies of the Unified Development Ordinance and Comprehensive Plan, testimony of the petitioner, city planning staff, and the new remonstrators, and all other exhibits presented, be they oral or written, for consideration by this board in regard to this petition, and to include the testimony of those present this evening.
Motion by Mr. Peters, second by Mr. King. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Take a motion on request number 1 to allow a fueling station within 400 feet of residential property for the address of 1641 West County Line Road that is not noted on the ballot, but I think it probably should be.
Well, it's.
Oh, it's at the,
petition
I'm sorry,
21.
they're separate
Yes.
dockets. Thank you. Docket BZA 2023-21.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we deny this request based that it does not meet statutory criteria. Particularly in my mind, number 1, it would be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Milborn to deny. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. And then BCA 2023-22, which is for the second property, 1655 West County Line Road.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we deny the request. Again, this does not meet statutory criteria. Number 1, it would be injurious to the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community.
Motion by Mr. King, second by Mr. Milborn to deny. All those in favor, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. That motion carries 4-0. Thank you for your time, and maybe continue and work something out. All right, I will take a motion to direct the Corporation's Council Director to find this fact.
Chairman, having considered the statutory criteria, I move that we direct the Corporation Counsel's Office to draft written findings of fact regarding our decision on the variance request presented in variance petition number BZA 2023-021. Said findings to specifically incorporate the staff report and the evidence submitted into the record for consideration and adoption by the Board of Zoning Appeals as a final decision, final action regarding this petition at our next meeting.
And you want to say 22 as well?
And I repeat the same thing, showing petition 2023-022.
Motion by Ms. Peters.
All of that.
Second by Mr. King for both dockets. All those in favor, please raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Motion carries 4-0 on both dockets. Any announcements?
No announcements.
Drew?
Nothing for me.
Thank you, Mr. Foster. Motion for adjournment. We are adjourned. You can stop the recording.